This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Sallie Wagner. Sallie is a speaker, she's an author, she's a lawyer, a real estate broker, a podcaster, an instructor, a best-selling author, and a life coach. That's a lot. She guides people to get rid of behaviors and beliefs and even decisions that can hold you back. So Sallie has been featured on our Nan McKay Connects website. You may have seen her there with her interview with Donna Miller of Purse Power. And as I listened to her on Purse Power, I asked her for a second interview because I thought she's got so many interesting things to say. What would happen if she focused on women over 60 who are retired or thinking about retirement? So welcome, Sallie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Sallie, I so enjoyed that interview. So let's talk about women over 60. So let's start out with, what do you feel are some common, let's say, limiting beliefs that others have toward older women?
Well, as one of those myself, I think they're probably the same limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves, that, oh, I'm too old for that. I'm not energetic enough. I'm not enough of whatever it is, or I'm too much of whatever it is. People don't want to hire me because I'm set in my ways and I can't learn anything new. And those are the things that we're projecting onto others. And perhaps those others are thinking those things about us. So I think the key is not so much the limiting beliefs that others have, but the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves.
That's interesting. So what do you think some of those other limiting beliefs are? Let's say that what do you feel about, for instance, the person who's had a career and her identity's been tied up with the career, and now all of a sudden, in retirement, which she thought she was looking forward to so much, it seems like we're losing our identity.
Yes. And that happens so much at various points in life when we have a dramatic change like that, when we're facing retirement. And think about in a relationship, we've been in a relationship with our careers for such a long time. When we lose that relationship, as you say, we don't know who we are anymore. And so sometimes it's easy to just go, okay, I'm done, because we have that limiting belief that we reach the end of a career and then we just kind of veg out. We go on trips, we use the points that we've accumulated from our travels and, those kinds of things. Maybe we volunteer a little bit, which is fabulous. I'm not saying anything about volunteering, and we should, right? But we have those beliefs about, okay, now I'm in those twilight years of life and I need to just kind of settle down and accept that this is where I am, take care of the grandkids. Maybe if you're lucky enough to have surviving parents, you take care of them. And we're still in that mode of, I don't know who I am anymore unless I'm in relation with somebody else doing something else. So I think that limiting belief that needs to be gotten rid of is, I can't do anything for myself because I have to give to others. And so I think the grace and the gift that we can give to ourselves at this time of life is to take some time and really contemplate, who do I want to be? Because I have that choice now. I have that power now. I'm not taking care of young kids. I mean, some of us raise grandkids, but for the most part, I'm not taking care of young kids. I have some time to really discover who I am. And so I think that's something that we can give to ourselves.
I was reading about what are the biggest fears for women over 60. And they're things like medical concerns. Am I going to get ill or have a serious illness like cancer? There are also things like, will I have enough money?
Right.
And what do you think are some of the additional fears that women start to have as they age?
Am I going to be alone? I think that's a big one. If you're lucky enough to have a spouse or a partner or, some significant person in your life, as we age, that's a fear, right? And it's a real fear because it does happen. That's the reality of life. And the reality is also it can happen at any time of life. I lost my first husband 18 years ago when I was much younger and not in my 60s. So that's just the reality of life. Every love story ends in tragedy because we're going to lose that person at some point. So that is a real fear, right? And I don't want to sugarcoat it because it is devastating. The fear about money and finances, that's a real fear. All of those things that you mentioned, and yet, I think that when we reach this point in life, we have some internal power that we can call upon to really move us in the direction to see that we are more than our circumstances.
What do you think about the financial concerns? I think many career women have their 401k or their IRA, something like that.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at Social Security, and then you're thinking, gosh, I can't get Medicare until I'm whatever age it is, 66 and a half or whatever it is,
Right.
that becomes a big concern. Is that what you found?
It is, absolutely. I mean, I live in Florida, and I think a lot of people, I was not one of these, but a lot of people moved here thinking, oh, we're going to retire, we're going to live the good life. And then, you age, you experience health issues, perhaps one spouse passes away. And then I see a lot of people working in the grocery stores and things like that, who perhaps didn't envision their later years in that way because of financial concerns. And so I think even if we don't have that big nest egg of investments and annuities and 401ks, it's never too late to start planning. We can do small things that will yield good results over time. So if that is a concern, don't pretend that it's not. Face it head on. That's how we overcome fears and challenges. We face them. We don't ignore them and hope they'll go away. So I would say always take small steps to move yourself in the right direction.
I think a lot of people are concerned even about their 401k and using out of it because you don't know how long you're going to live. You can't predict that. So you're thinking, gosh, if I take it out now, what's going to happen to me in the future? And then it's just the investments going up and down, and you get concerned about, well, do I have enough money? Of course, at some point you have to take out your required minimum distribution, but still, that's not a whole lot of money, and that's required so that you can pay those taxes on it. But I think people are concerned about taking so much of it out and not having enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, again, it's a real concern, and especially when you listen to the news, which is not very comforting, I suppose, with the markets and you hear talk of recession and increasing inflation and all of these things. And major companies are losing incredible value in a very short period of time. That affects 401ks, that affects investments, that affects everything. And so I think, it's not to minimize those realities. And yet I think the source of our strength and our confidence needs to be that internal knowledge of who we are, that we are greater than our circumstances. And when we can do that, we have the courage to face it, whatever it is.
Do you find that more women who have retired are starting either a second career or a business?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people, it's kind of a seamless process. So there really is no retirement because it's, I was doing this. in my career. Perhaps I was in the corporate world, as I was for decades. And then it just kind of morphed into, now I'm in my own businesses, and I don't see an end to those, right? Because it's up to me how long I want to work, how hard I want to work. So long as I'm delivering value and people want me to deliver that value, I love it. So why would I stop? So I think that's the opportunity that we have. And perhaps we've reached a point in life in our 60s when we have a little bit of a comfort, a cushion there financially, and we can take some risk to really explore the possibility of starting a business and doing something that we actually love.
What kind of businesses do you see people starting?
Oh my gosh, all kinds. I work with a lot of real estate agents, so a lot of people are in real estate, obviously. A lot of people are starting careers with spices. I know a woman in her 70s, and she started a company with spice blends for various health benefits and cooking, so there are those kinds of things. I know someone who is doing website development and SEO optimization and all of those kinds of things, PR, branding, how to help people network when they're introverts, just a wide variety of businesses. Because as each person looks at what their future holds, they really question themselves and ask, what do I love? What makes me come alive? And then they go do it, because that's what we're called to do ultimately, I believe.
I have a channel called Live with Significance and After 60. And I think that is really important, but tell me what that would mean to you. What do you think we mean when we say live with significance?
Yeah. So I think significance and living with significance is, what is the impact that I'm having on the world? And it can be in my family. I can be significant to them as I serve them and help them. It can be at a local level as I give back to my community and I participate in something greater than myself. I think that's what brings us significance. It can be at a national level, a global level. It's whatever level we are called to participate in as we bring that impact. And that's where we have significance in our lives.
And do you see more people doing that than, let's say, the generation of women that were our mothers, who were just glad to be able to stay home and be with the grandchildren and bake cookies? And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's just that the majority of people back then look forward to that. I'm not so sure that's true today.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose I had a different experience. My family was very poor. And so my mother always worked. And she brought significance to everything she did. She was a cafeteria manager in the schools in the town where we lived. And if I may, I'll digress, because I think this is a perfect example of bringing significance wherever we are. So as a cafeteria manager decades ago, before the free breakfast, and there was a child the teacher brought to my mother in the cafeteria, and it was in a very poor part of town, and the child had not had breakfast, and the teacher said, can you please give her something to eat? And so my mother said, okay, I'm happy to do that, but first let's, wash your hands and face and comb your hair, because the little girl was kind of unkempt. And so she did that, and my mother gave her something to eat, and she's off to class. Well, the little girl liked it. And so she started coming back, and the first thing she would ask is, could you help me wash my face and hands? And so it just kind of became a little thing that she did to help the girl. Decades later, my mother's retired, but not really, because she's running the food ministry at their church. And this woman shows up with her kids to volunteer and do stuff. And she spoke to my mother and said, you don't know who I am, do I? You can guess where the story's headed, right? She was the little girl, all grown up, and she immediately recognized my mother. That's significance at whatever level we are. And I think that's what we're called to do, no matter where we are and in whatever way we can do it.
So that term, make a difference, is really important and very individual to each person.
Absolutely. We're not all the same, right? We don't all have the same calling or the same interest. And we are called to bring what we have to bring. And that's what my mother had to offer. And it made a difference in that woman's life as she grew up from that little girl. And then it impacted her children because her children were there and she saw my mother. So it was just this odd happenstance that brought it all together.
In addition to the typical challenges that we have discussed, where we're talking about health issues and retirement, money, and socialization and those things, what are some other typical challenges on a more individual basis that you think women over 60 are dealing with?
Well, I think, we live in a very youth-centric society. If you think about all these reports that you hear out of Hollywood, that these aging actors refuse to have a co-star who's older than 25 years old. I mean, how does that make sense, right? And you see these beautiful female actors as they age and they have all the work done, and I'm not saying anything about you should or shouldn't do that. I think it's an individual decision. And yet we have that pressure from society that we're only valuable when we're young and we're beautiful and we're thin and we're all of those things, all of those messages that we get. And I think that affects us in such individual ways. Depending on our feelings of self-worth. So I think those are very individual challenges that we face because of the messages that we get from society. And then we have other things, women are not supposed to do X, or and depending on your age, and in the 60s, I grew up with a lot of that, small town in North Carolina. Girls were not supposed to do certain things. And I always wanted to do those things that you weren't supposed to do. I wanted to take the auto mechanics class in school and they wouldn't let me. It was before Title IX, so those kinds of things. We have those messages that are individualized based on our upbringing, that are challenges that we need to overcome sometimes.
Yeah, I remember back in those days, it was sewing and cooking.
Yes.
That were the classes that we could take.
Yes.
Yep. Now you actually help people by finding the solution to their challenges, by helping them unlearn what they know that's not true about themselves.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. How do you help with their personal growth through that?
So there are a couple of main ways. I use EFT, that's emotional freedom techniques, and NLP, that's evolved neuro-linguistic programming. And those techniques are really very effective, I should say, in helping people get those kinds of results, because we have all of that programming at a subconscious level, and we may not always know it consciously, like those messages that I used to believe that I have to be perfect, right? That's a limiting belief. You may think, oh, perfect, that's wonderful. Of course we want to be, and yet it's very limiting. Because for me, if I know I'm not going to be perfect, then I'm just not going to do it, right? And it holds you back from doing a lot of things in life. We all have those kinds of beliefs. And at the subconscious level, we're not always consciously aware of them. When we can bring them into our conscious awareness and use techniques like EFT and NLP, we can really make rapid, concrete progress in getting rid of those and installing new beliefs that have more utility for us to move in the direction we consciously choose to go in life.
What do you think women are looking for today over 60?
I think the people I talk with, my neighbors, my friends, we want to have a sense of joy, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of identity. Like, I really know who I am as a person, independent of anything else, independent of my relationships, my job, my career, my business, whatever it is. I want to know who I am as a person. And that's one of the questions. A big part of this process is to ask yourself questions. And one of the big questions to ask is, first of all, why is something important to me? Is it important because somebody told me it should be important? Or is it because I truly believe it's important? And that can apply to anything that, how I look, how I dress. It can apply to my job, my relationships. It can apply to everything. It can apply to the car that I drive, the clothes that I wear. Is it important because I truly believe it's important for me? Or is it because somebody told me it should be important? So I think that's a big step in really identifying who we are and what's important to us. And then the next question would be, who are you when you're not doing all those things that you do? When you're not busy being a parent, a child, a spouse, a partner, an employee, a business owner, who are you at your very core, at your essence of being? And when we can answer those kinds of questions, I think we just open ourselves up to untold joy and opportunity in life.
Well, I know you have a podcast and you also have a new book out. Tell us kind of what the thrust of each one of those are, and then how can people participate?
Awesome. Thank you. So my podcast is called High Frequency Mindset, and I talk to a variety of people. I love talking to all these people and meeting them, people who own businesses, people who provide services to business owners, such as branding and SEO and website development. I interviewed a fabulous person recently. She does nutrition coaching, and she actually leads groups on retreat to Italy, where they cook Italian food and they have a fabulous time. So it really is wide enough in the range of what we talk about that I think everyone could find something of interest. I also have a radio show. It's called Reboot Your Thinking. It's really focused on critical thinking skills, how we can develop them, how we can avoid mental traps that prevent us from thinking critically, and why it all matters, because it does matter. How we think about things really matters in our lives. And a book. So my most recent book was called 30 Days to Courage. And it was kind of like a guideline on how to overcome challenges. I have a new book coming out in December. It's called 30 Days to Transformation, and it's a guide to how to transform yourself to be able to live the life that makes you come alive.
And can this be purchased? These can be purchased on Amazon, I presume.
Yes.
Okay. And then we also have them on, I think there's a mindset one on our.
Oh, okay. Perhaps Reboot Your Thinking with the MSP.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes. Thank you for asking about that. So MSG is an acronym that I use in some of my coaching. It stands for Mindset, Skill Set, Get Off Your Asset. Because I think it really encapsulates a lot of important concepts. We got to have that mindset. If we have that negative chatter, we're just not going to get anywhere. So mindset is so important. And sometimes we need new skills to have the right mindset, because we're not always taught how to do it. And then the last piece is we have to take action. If we don't take action and put everything into practice, then it's just philosophy.
And you can lose sleep over it.
Yes.
And we've certainly, I think, over the years had a lot of programming in a lot of ways, some of it from our family, some of it from, as you said, the media, how they view us. So we've got a lot of things to think about and overcome. And do you think people are more inclined to start to want to work on those things in their 60s? Or are they thinking, oh, well, what is, I'll just lean back? What do you see today in today's women?
I see a lot of people who are wanting that. They want more because, we feel like, and this is kind of the consensus of people I talk with and work with, we've done all the things we were supposed to do, right? Like for me, I went to law school. I did all that stuff I was supposed to do. And now I want to do what's for me. And we have that programming that says, oh, don't be selfish, right? That's selfish. We shouldn't. And yet, if we don't take care of ourselves in the right way, then how can we possibly help and serve others? So if our mission is to help and serve others, we really need to care for ourselves first so that we have the strength and the integrity to be able to do that.
And we're worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
Think how much we've accomplished over all these years, we're worth it.
Yeah.
So why take a back seat to that and not just own it?
I know. And yet we do have that programming about, oh, you're not supposed to be selfish, put everybody else first.
Well, and I'm not sure men always think that way.
No.
So why should we,
Yeah.
There should be equality there.
Yeah. And it doesn't serve us. And ultimately, it doesn't serve those people that we say we want to help, because it creates a lot of resentment. It creates a lot of martyrdom, victimhood, all those things that we really don't want to fall into because it's such low frequency thinking. It drags us down.
Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
I think I would like to share a quote, and I've said it here on a couple of occasions, but I'd like to explain where it comes from. So Howard Thurman, who was a mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." So I would leave everyone with that encouragement to discover and live the life that makes you come alive.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Sallie.
Thank you.